do this all day. Amen.
Thinking it's time about coming up this morning. Must be all this rain.
Yeah. You can see my camera with the website.
We're having some very strong rains today. I'm waiting on it to come up, so I know you got it out there. Let's see if I got it here.
You have it yet? Is it popped up on your
Not
yet?
yet.
It should be up and running now.
Yeah.
You got it yet?
I got it. He's working on it. Yeah, I got it.
My phone's kind of like me.
Okay.
Old and slow this morning.
Yeah. You can hear the rain.
There
Yeah.
it is. It is now.
The noise that you're hearing, it's not static. It is pouring the rain and has been all morning. So that's what you're hearing is the rain hitting the roof. I'll wait just a minute. Gives everybody time to come on. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. That's a mother. And to the rest of you too. It's good to be back this morning. Yeah, it's working okay. We have had a really rainy spring, and so we're getting one of those days where it is just pouring down, and has been every other day this week. But that is spring, I guess. We've been talking on being enjoined as one, and we've been discussing being the observer. We came here as eternal beings, and we created ourselves, and just like the Holy Spirit created a body in Jesus Christ, and then he poured himself into that body, not like not partial. I think the prophet said not like pouring in filling up an arm or a leg. He was all Christ, and we've done the same thing. We created a body that could manifest the other side of us. We had a side that was theophany. We had a side that was eternal. We had a side that had all the attributes of that theophany world, but then there was a humanity world that theophany couldn't be. And there was a half of us that we wanted to express, so we created a body that would express that other half. And then we stepped into that body as an observer, so we could feel everything about humanity. Mm-hmm. And then we talked about being enjoined in one. I think that was last weekend. And during the time of all this, I was thinking a lot about things. I wrote this down, and this is what kind of drove me to where I'm going to go this morning. I said, what a condition to be in, so contented, As observers, we observe the earth and humanity. So that's what we're doing, and that's what we've done. As observers, watching all things, gaining everything by experience, we have observed the earth and humanity. We've come through millions of talkers with their tongues broken. And, somebody wrote me and said, Brother Parnell, where do you get a lot of sayings that you use? They said it kind of goes to the core real quick. And when I put, we've come through millions of talkers with their tongues broken. I don't know if you ever listened to Bob Dylan any, but his song, The World Has Changed, he says we have observed 10,000 talkers with their tongues broken. And so it just hit me. I thought, yes, we sure have. And we've seen multiple millions of listeners with their hearts and hands empty. And was part of that song. And I love listening to all kinds of different music because they're getting into the Spirit and they're bringing messages to us all the time. And so a lot of times when I post a song, I'm not posting it just say, hey, this is a good song. There's a message in it. But he says, we've seen multiple millions of listeners with their hearts and their hands empty. We've wondered how many ears must a man have to hear the people's cries. And, of course, that was Bob Dylan, Blowing in the Wind. And that's what we've done. We've wondered, we've watched, and we said, how many ears must a man have before he can hear and feel the people crying and things like that. And we've stepped through the veil to create another condition. Change the world, change us, change ourselves. And we step through the veil to create another condition. We shouted, we're leaving, but the fight still remains. So we have to deal with that all the time. And of course, if you listen much to music, the Simon and Garfunkel, the boxer, he's trying to change his world. He's having to step out of the fight, and he says, I shouted, I'm leaving, but the fight still remained. And that's what we did. We left the church age world. We left a world of war. We left a world so completely different, a Piscean age. And we shouted, we're leaving. But the fight still remained in us for a long time. And so then now we've silenced the broken tongues. Our ears heard the people's cries. We don't study war anymore. And we put food into the hearts and hands of the listeners. And I'm writing this down as I listen to songs and things like that through the last couple of weeks. And I watch what you write. I watch what you say on Facebook and all the different ways that we communicate through email and through Messenger and everything else. And I'm seeing a people whose hearts and hands are not empty anymore. You're catching and understanding that is satisfying you. It's not like Don Parnell has a message and we're going to follow that. No, that's nothing to do with that. It satisfies you. You're able to function and work and enjoy your life because you've opened up, you understand, and you've found a whole new world for yourself, and it filled your heart, and your hands are not empty anymore. What we have works. We know it works because we see the people with their spiritual bellies and hearts full and satisfied with this dimensional intercourse. And that's what we have come to, is a dimensional intercourse. We've come to a place to where, just to be blunt about it, we can have sex in every dimension. When I say that, I don't mean just physical. There is spiritual intercourse, there's physical intercourse, there is so many different dimensions, and we have learned that and stepped through in every dimension. And however you get intimate in that dimension, we've learned how to do that. And we get intimate in the sixth dimension. Somebody wrote when I said that, the sixth dimension, when William Branham went there and when I went there, Brother Branham made the statement. He said, I hugged my wife and sisters ran up and hugged me, and he said, there's no sex glands there. He said there was none of those feelings or any of those things. And so all of us said, hallelujah, when we get to heaven, there'll be no sex glands. And, he was just talking about the sixth dimension. Mm-hmm. And we are in heaven now. We are living in heaven. Mm-hmm. Paul said that in the book of Ephesians. We are in heaven. Now, King James went on and added heavenly places, but Paul didn't say that. Go to the original, he said, we are in heaven.
Yep.
And so here we are, and we still have our sex glands, mm-hmm. and we still have feelings, and we still know how to be intimate in this physical dimension. And we also know how to be intimate in the sixth dimension, but it's not with sex glands. It is another way, and that's through the speaking of the word. That's through the organ of the mouth rather than the belly. It's through all of those different ways. So we've learned all these dimensional discourses and intercourses. We've learned them all, and we're moving through them. And it's a great day to be so content. And someone said, will any of that go away? No, we are here. What will happen is the Spirit is eternal, and the things that are flowing out of him, I say him, flowing out of it, because it is not a him, the things that are flowing out of it will continue to flow out of it and continue to flow out of it, and it'll progress and progress, but this is what we're going to be. This is who we are. This is heaven. And what we need to learn in this heaven is how to deal with our earthly heaven and how to deal with these things out here, and how to, at the same time, how to be able to cross the veil so easily, not by dying, but right here, living alive, and keep crossing the veil and having an intimate relationship through discussion and communication, and not using sex glands for that part, but using our intercourse through the mouth. And so, that kind of got us stirred a little bit. Different ones wrote me and said, I thought all that would go away. And I said, listen, it never was there in the sixth dimension. Mm-hmm. Never did they have sexual relationship physically in the sixth dimension. When I went there, when William Branham went there, when different ones have gone there, there's other men that have gone across the veil of this time relationship. There's never been anything about sex physically. It's never been there. But here, it's here, and it's here to stay. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about here and there, all you're talking about is a shift in speed, a shift in how we measure time. That's all it is. So what we have works. Those who have come to understand are no longer chasing after phony gods on every corner of the ages. They did that every time there was a little turn in the age. Everybody started searching for some phony god. And looking to where's God at now? What's he doing now? And they're all the time looking for phony gods. And what we have done is we have these neon gods that everybody's looking for and serving and worshiping and everything else. We've transcended that. And so I talked a little bit about being enjoined as one. And then all of this thinking kind of brought me to exactly where are we? There are still, I mean, it's obvious to see, there are still tons of differences. There is, just look at every scale of everything that's happening. Politics, religion, right on down the line, family, colors, seasons. There's just differences everywhere. And we always thought we were going to reconcile those differences, and everything was going to be utopia, and everything was going to be the same, and everybody was going to be 21, and everybody was going to have long black hair and white teeth, and that's just the way it was going to be. Well, in the sixth dimension, the way the Word sees it, that's the way it is. But here, it ain't quite what it is. Not everybody has long black hair. Not everybody has pearly white teeth. You can see that. Not everybody is young. And this is heaven. So what we've done, we took a bunch of dimensional things and we got them all screwed up, mixed up. I'm sorry. We got them all to a point to where we couldn't tell which was which. And so we've come to an understanding now, and we've learned the true spirit of the earth. And we are enjoined as one. We begin to enjoin ourselves. What I'm trying to say in that last little sentence that I wrote is we're coming to a full understanding of expressing the moment. And at the moment, we are earth. That's what we are. And there is a dimension that we are in here right now, but we have earth on us. And because of that, some of those dimensions which are unseen, we're participating in them, but you just can't see them. You've got to put on a different communication scale. You've got to put on a different measurement. You've got to put on a different eye, use that third eye. You've got to do a lot of things in order to break loose from an earthly walk in an earthly dimension and break into those other dimensions which are right here, right now. And so I came up, I was looking at all these things, and I thought, how do we come to a scale that takes the differences and levels them out. We talked about it for a year and a half now, coming to a level playing field. How do we take those differences and level them out? And so I was thinking about energy and how that we've come through all these different forms of energy in the earth. And the word straight, S-T-R-A-I-T, came up as I was studying and I was going through things. And straight, it's not straight like a straight line, S-T-R-A-I-G-H-T, but it's straight, S-T-R-A-I-T. And it has a few meanings as you look at it. One of them is a body of water, like a river. And one is like a path. And one is neutrality. It's like it's a place you step into and everything is neutral. And so when I was reading through, I thought, straight. And then it hit me, this scripture, Matthew 7:13, enter ye in at the strait gate, S-T-R-A-I-T. So, you could say, well, in an earthly realm, we entered through the water. William Branham said, this revival started in the water. When you go back to the four elemental things that make up the earth, you get water. You remember us talking on these things? It started in the water. And then it moves from the water to the fire. It explodes. And then it moves from the water and the fire. When it explodes, it becomes a vapor and it goes into the air. and then when it goes into the air, it forms rain, drops itself back into there, so you get water, fire, air, and earth, and these four make up what's going on in the earth. It's a strait, is what it is. And many scientists refer to the four elements as a straight way for the earth. And I thought, okay, so Jesus wasn't necessarily talking about going down to the river and being baptized by John or one of his disciples. He said, straight is the gate. A gate is an opening. A gate is a portal. Straight is the gate. Or in other words, before you can enter the portal into something new, you've got to come to a condition of straight. You've got to come to a calm, neutral condition. And that is exactly what we did when we moved. The portal brought us from the theophany into earth. We came through a strait. We came through a neutral path. We dropped into that little baby's womb. We was totally innocent. We were in a strait. And then we started finding out everything about this new world as we moved through that strait. So he says, enter ye at the strait gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. And everybody says, oh yeah, wide is the gate and broad is the way, and everybody's going to be destroyed, and they're going to burn in hell. Jesus is not even thinking that way whatsoever. He makes the statement, wide is the gate, broad is the way that leadeth to this change, destruction. You know what your prophet taught you in a future home. Destruction just means change. So you come through the strait, you come through the gate, you come in a neutral condition, you drop into that womb, you're 9 months, you come out into a new world, and you're in a neutral condition, and then you feed off of everything that's going on in the world around you to grow up and build yourself into a character. So we see this happening now. For wide is the gate, broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. And it's true, many there be that go in thereat, changing every day. Luke, when he wrote it, is Jesus talking about the same thing. He said, strive to enter in at the strait gate. For many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able. So there is something that when you enter the strait gate, when you enter into that neutrality, many are seeking to enter there, and they're not able. They're not able to find that neutrality. They're not able to dispense of the war, dissolve the conflict. And I'm going to get into energy here in just a minute, but this is what Jesus is saying, and that's what Luke understood. I say unto you, seek to enter in, many shall try to, and shall not be able. And Matthew comes back and says, Jesus, they were all three there, Luke, Matthew, and the different disciples. Matthew writes about it and says, Jesus said, because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life. Oh, I thought it was unto destruction. It is. Life is destruction. Strait is the gate, narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Do you know how you should feel thinking about these things right now? That you have found life. You have found that inside this place that you entered through a strait gate, through a little baby of neutrality, that you've entered into the greatest thing, and you not only entered it, you wrestled with it, you brought it down, you stepped into it, and you come to a place that you understand it. You understand what you're here for. You understand who you are. When you go through destruction, you're able to cope with it. When you get through the other end of that piece of destruction, you kind of just say, wow, that was a real experience, and you gain so much from it. You're not just rolling in the wind like a tumbleweed and falling here and falling there and like a reed shaking in the wind. You know who you are. What a great blessing that is. Something to be that content, to be that understanding, and to know that you can enter every dimension. I can go into the 7th dimension and be God all I want. I can go into the 6th dimension and have fellowship through the organs of the mouth and communication and enjoy that all I want. I can go into the 5th dimension of hell, and when I go there, all life is with me. I'm not worried about it. The 5th dimension and all these things that spirits that grow off your tree and the demonic things and everything that has to do with the hellish condition, I can move through it, and the Spirit is right there. It is me, and I make it through it, and I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and I fear no evil, for thou art with me. I can go into the 4th dimension of technology, the things that we're doing right now, communication, technology through communication. I can go into the 4th dimension, the information world. Some people can't handle the information world. We watched a brother that just fell apart here last month or so, or 2 months ago, because of the information world. He wrote me, he said, be careful what you say. I've been your student for 2 decades. And I'm finding out this and this and this, and how come you didn't teach us about the cabal, and how come you didn't teach us about the pedophiles, how come you didn't do all these things? You don't need to be taught about those things. They're out there. It's filth. It's ungodliness. It's unbelievable, and the humanity will take care of itself. Do you know that the Roman kingdom and the Greeks were the worst ones for pedophilia, and the worst ones for all of the filth, the cabals, and everything else that they had? They were the worst, and they were in rule when Jesus was walking the earth. And neither John the Baptist nor Jesus ever mentioned or worried one thing about it.
That's right.
I don't build my message on all of that. My message is about where we're at, who we are. And I wrote him, I said, if you let that topple you, you might have been a student, but you certainly haven't been a good one. That's all I know to say, because those things, I see them every day. And I'll be honest with you, I've been in a corporation for 35 years in HR. I'm still dealing with them. I still help them with things. I still set things. I still negotiate for them. I still get all the information that's going across the world, whether it's about politics or religion or media or corporations and all of the different things that are happening. I get it all the time. You know, the things that people fall over in the information world, I've known them for 30 years. Why fall over it? It's just another piece of the world. And it's a piece we don't want to be a part of. So what I'm teaching you and what I am enjoying and what I'm trying to help you find in yourself and enjoy is a world without that in it. Very simple to me. So we commonly think that energy is negative or positive. I was thinking about these things. And you hear people all the time, negative and positive, negative and positive. You got to have some negative. You got to have some positive. You got to have all these things. And listen to me. There's only one energy source. That's all there is. There ain't two, and there aren't three, and there aren't a dozen. There's one energy source in the world, and that is the Spirit. It flows out into many attributes, in many forms. Every form that you see, from a leaf on a tree to a bird flying through the air, to this man sitting right here, to this mic, to this water, to that love sign, everything that you're looking at is energy. It is energy, and it is a form of light. But as the light passes through and drops into a lower speed, it densifies or becomes denser, and it takes on forms. It's all light, but it has to move through darkness, another attribute, in order to express itself, and we need both the light and the darkness. So I was thinking about all these things. We commonly think that energy is negative or positive. Think positive. Be positive. Write positive things. Read all the positive things. If you do that, you're going to be a pretty lopsided person. Oh, don't get into the negative. Come on. We are all things. So this negative and this positive are energy processes. And as we're moving through this, I got to thinking about it, and I started looking up Strait and several of the words, and I found the word in energy, I found the word neutrality. And then I found where many of the engineers, electrical engineers, were talking about a third source of energy, and that energy is neutrality. There's positive, there's negative, there's neutrality. There's AC, which is alternating current, and then there's DC. And AC currents have negative and positive traveling both ways. And DC is just a negative energy, and it's traveling one way. And Tesla's the one that broke into alternating currents and took us in the energy world to unbelievable places. So the electricians were saying, and I was looking for a way to how do you come to a level playing field with all of this going on? And in a three-phase electrical energy system, which I was reading this from electrical engineers, in a three-phase electrical energy system, there are two hot wires. If you go into a panel out here, you can open it up. There's two. You see the panels on both sides going all the way down through there, and there's two hot wires running through there. And so there are two hot wires, and then there's a ground. And the ground is what keeps you, anytime that you flip a switch on or do whatever you do to use this energy, the ground is what keeps you from becoming a part of that energy field and getting, shocked and knocked out, killed, and everything else. The ground does that for you. And so there's two hot wires, and then there's a ground wire. And then I found out there is a neutral wire. It's called neutrality. And it's a white wire. If you ever go into your panels, you got two red wires, you got a black wire, it's a ground, and you got a neutral wire, it's a white wire. And so I thought, okay, I've been looking at the word straight, which is neutrality. And so the neutral wire deals with amps, not voltage. The red wires deal with voltage. The ground stabilizes that voltage to where it can't get outside of that panel. And then a neutral wire deals with amps that are in that panel. And the neutral wire, this neutral wire deals with the amps, not the voltage. It is not a negative, it is not a positive, and it's not a ground. And I thought, okay, so there's a way to move out of the whole system. There's a way to step out of being negative or positive. There's a way to move out of the whole system. And some engineers call it the energy balance or energy neutrality. Energy balance wire. What it does is this. Listen, two hot wires. a ground wire, and then that little white wire that you see inside the panel is a neutral wire. This is what it does. When energy is imbalanced between the two hot wires due to length or size, whatever it might be, and you have that depending on what you got going on in the house and your panels and everything else, some wires are longer than others. It's just like setting up a sound system. When we set up a sound system in the church down here where we used to be, the sound room was about maybe 30 yards away from the actual system. And so in order for people to hear us through the mics, you had to add in some boosters, because the more length of the wire, the weaker it gets. And the thicker the wire, the stronger it stays. It all has to do with how long it is, what the length of it is, what the breadth of it is, what the thickness of it is, as far as the energy that it's carrying. If you put in a wire that is carrying so much energy, it's going to explode that wire. It's going to burn it out. If you put in a wire that's too much and you're trying to send just a little energy through it, it's going to die out so quick it's not going to do what you want. Your lights in the house and everything else are going to be dim. So you set up these panels with the hot wires and the ground, and then this neutral wire does this. The neutral wire is an energy. When energy is imbalanced between the two hot wires due to length or size or whatever the difference is, the neutral wire provides a path back to the original source, the energy, for the imbalanced amperage, leveling the energy field so nothing is lost. Now here's what it's saying. You got wires in here that are of thickness, and they're carrying a voltage that is higher. They're carrying an amperage that may be 30 or 40. And here's a wire over here that's carrying 5 amps, 10 amps, whatever. So you got a 20 amp over here and you got a 10 amp over here on the two hot wires. Well, they got a difference between them. They've got a difference between them. And if you don't have something to level out that difference, you're going to explode the panel. Mm-hmm. So that's what a neutral wire is about. A neutral wire, if this set over here has 20 amp wires and voltage coming into it, and this set has 10, well, there's 10 difference. And then you got maybe 6 of those down through here, 10 on each one of them. You got 60 amps difference. And if you think you're going to use a panel with that much difference, it's not going to happen. You're going to burn the house down. So the neutral wire takes the difference in amps, the two hot wires, brings that together, and it's a straight, S-T-R-A-I-T. It's a straight neutral path back to the original source. The panel. That panel that's got that great big amperage up there at the top of it that switches the house on and off. It carries all of that back into that, and it can handle it. Mm-hmm. And it dissolves all of the differences. And it takes that energy and sends it right back through. So what you have is whenever there's a difference that would cause an explosion, you have a neutral wire that brings it to the straight and takes it right straight back into the energy source, and nothing is lost, and it redistributes, and it redistributes, and it redistributes, and nothing is lost. Now, if you don't have that neutrality, if you don't have that straight path back to the energy, what did the one disciple in here say would happen? Many people try to enter in but are not able. You've got a panel that won't work. When many people want to stay where the fight is. Many people want to just fight and argue and fuss and just constantly, they want an explosion. They want things to blow up. They want to have a life. that's full of drama and everything else. So they don't recognize or install or create, because you are a creator, they don't create a neutrality wire for themselves. Mm-hmm. And they're in a constant difference with everybody else. Now, you get to thinking about this, and you pay attention to it, and you think about this. We shouldn't, with this understanding that we shouldn't have a difference with anybody, because we have an installed neutrality wire. We have a way. We may be 30 amp, and the Baptist may be 1 amp, and the Methodist may be 2, and the Catholics may be 3. But we got a neutrality system that takes the other 27 amps, runs it back through the energy source, which is part of us. We understand it, and we're able to fellowship, communicate, talk with, and know for a matter of a fact that they are a part of the energy system. Mm-hmm. Whether it's political, whatever it might be, they are a part of the energy system. And we should be, when we find those differences that are going to cause an explosion, we should be able to use our neutrality path, straight as the path, use it and take things back to the original source and keep moving on and realize whatever you run into is still you. Some engineers call it the energy balance wire. What it does when you when energy is imbalanced between the two hot wires due to length, size, or whatever, the neutrality wire provides a path back to the source energy for the imbalanced amperage, leveling the energy field so nothing is lost. So the next time you run into that message person and he's using 10 amps on you, be calm. You're a 20 amp. You're a 30 amp. You're the source. Mm-hmm. You're beyond the two hot wires. You can take everything back where it needs to go. So don't worry about it. In other words, when the two hot wires have their differences in energy, there is a path directly back to the source energy, and the indifference is corrected by neutrality. We have found our third phase of the energy system. Not many are able to enter at this straight gate. Why it is the gate? It's right before us now. Excuse me. We have found the third phase of the energy system, neutrality, a path back to the source for all of our differences. Now let me read you a scripture, and it'll help you understand just a little bit what Paul is talking about. Hebrews 6:4. For it is impossible for those who were once enlightened and have tasted of the heavenly gift and were made partakers of the Holy Ghost and have tasted the good word of God and the powers of the world to come, if they shall fall away, to renew them again unto repentance, seeing they crucified to themselves the Son of God afresh and put him to an open shame. It's impossible for us to come to this point. That's what Paul is saying. He's not saying if you come to this point, it's impossible for you to be a part of the system. But if you come to this point, then we don't put the system to open shame and explode things and everything else. For the earth which drinketh in the rain that cometh oft upon it, and bringeth forth herbs, meat for them by whom it is dressed, receiveth blessings from the Spirit, but that which beareth thorns and briars is rejected, and is nigh unto cursing, whose end is to be burned. And we say to ourselves, yep, that's hell. That's where they're going. Their end is they're going to be all burned up because they were thorns and thistles. Well, you need to understand that those thorns and thistles are a part of the system. And yes, a field gets burned, but the same energy is still there, and it just changes the form of the life, is all it does. And nothing goes away in the system. It goes back through the neutrality system. The neutrality system is the amps that were rejected. You and I, we are rejected every day. We know that. It's the amps that come into that neutrality system that are rejected and are nigh unto rejection and are nigh unto cursing and will be burned. That's you and I. It happens to us all the time. We get rejected. We reject things about ourselves. And what we do when we see these things about ourselves, we look at it and we say, I don't want anything to do with that. I want to change. I want to be something better. I want to make myself a better person. And what do? We burn that process. We burn that thing. We purge it to where we don't live in that field anymore. So it's not a matter of it's impossible for them to be saved. They're all going to hell. No. What's impossible is to be able to live in that hot wire system in that condition, so you flow into the neutrality of rejection and cursing, and you go back to the source, and you come out again. And you come out again. And it happens all the time. So I was thinking about all those things. And that's what made me write certain things this past week and a half. Distortions of feedback loop in our minds, guilt and unworthiness, lacking, insecurity, inferiority, superiority, victim mentality, separation and condemnation, just to mention a few of those distortions, and we all have them, almost on a daily basis or an hourly basis. All of these emotions and accusations come from what we think is us. It is just an overflow. And those things have to move into a neutrality system. You need to come to grips with who you are, and you have those distortions and you have those things. And when one half of you is much less on the amperage than the other half, it doesn't make it not part of the system. It just makes it is that you need to create within yourself that neutrality wire, that white wire, and you need to let everything flow back to the source, nigh to cursing, to be burned, to purge it, and let it come back out again in a different form. All of these emotions and accusations come from what we think is us. It's actually not us. We are the observer. As an observer, I created the two hot wires. I created the ground wire, and I created the neutrality. I created all of these things inside me to cope with me, I'm the energy source. I am the source. I am the observer. And I created all these things to cope with me in this earthbound world. And so when I built all of these things, it's not that I'm wanting to burn some part of me up. I'm not wanting to send some part of me to hell. I'm wanting to take these conditions, and however we have to live in the earth, we are theophany, we are creators, and we create what we need to live here with the differences in peace and tranquility and understanding and flow in every dimension. When we observe and hear these voices and accusations from within and coming from around us through the mouth of others, do not accept them. Silence the belief that makes us feel and think that way. Make a neutrality wire. When there's a difference inside you or a difference between you and another, let it flow into the neutrality system and let it go back to the source and settle down. When it's ready, it will feed it right back out and it'll be acceptable. So, silence that belief system that makes us feel and think that way. Leave traditions that define us and our works by these accusations and beliefs. Don't define yourself by this overflow. Don't define yourself by these distortions that take place in the hot wires. Don't define yourself by all of these things. Put it into the neutrality and say, it's all me. I'm going to use it. I'll send it back through the source. I am the source. And I will reflex on it. I'll sit down in peace. I'll have some reflexation. And I'll bring it back out and it'll work better the next time. And you do that, dissolve the feedback loop. That's what we need to do. We need to dissolve or come to grips with the feedback loop of voices outside the gap. Come to the one voice in the throne room and live a fulfilled life. Come to that point to where you've got neutrality taking you right back, a straight path, right back into who you are, the real source. Don't get all tore up over the distortions of this and this and this flowing through what you created. You created this. There's nothing to get upset about. Nothing. All these distortions are part of the process. It's part of the energy. And we're creators. We just need to create within us a straight path and source to let that overflow go right back into the system and flow again. How do we know that the throne room voice is speaking in us? How do we know when we're in the throne room and we're not in the battle of the hot wires? How do we know when we're in that throne room? It will always lead us away from those voices of condemnation. Listen, if you got a voice in you that's condemning you all the time, you need to shut that voice up. You need to cut that voice off. It is an overflow, and it needs to get into the neutrality path and send it back to the source and reflex on it and bring it out better the next time. Use yourself in a better way. Act in a better condition. Make yourself a better condition to live in. Whatever it is that you have to do, but don't think for a second that that's not a part of you. The same energy that is distorting things is the same energy that's supplying you a flow. So we need to work on these things that are distorting and bringing about something around the flow that's not, in our minds, working right. Dissolve the feedback loop of voices outside the gap. Come to one voice in the throne room. And we know the voice is us. When we hear anything about condemnation and it brings that into your presence, it's a distortion. Don't let it talk. Don't keep it in the system. It will explode the system. It'll shut down the system. You'll have trouble, and more trouble. Send it back through the neutrality wire into the presence of the present. It'll take care of it. It'll purge whatever it needs to purge. It'll change whatever it needs to change. You know, that's what a transformer's for. If you go up and down the streets, you'll find transformers on these poles. They're so big, and what those transformers are is they will handle up to 50,000 volts. Now you've got grids sitting somewhere that are just an innumerable amount of voltage, sending it out all over the city. And then you've got these transformers on the poles ever so often, or underground ever so often, wherever they have them. And when that 250,000 volts hits that transformer will take that, and that transformer will condense it into like 50,000 volts. And then it will supply a whole neighborhood. You'll see a transformer and it may supply a whole city block or 2 city blocks. But what it does, out of that transformer into your house comes a 220. And when it's flowing down through there, it takes that 50,000 volts laying in that transformer, and as all those volts move throughout the neighborhood, they weaken and they drop down and they drop down, and they put it into your house on a panel, 220. And then they wire it up as a 110 so that you're not frying yourself with a 50,000 volt or with a 220. You can make a little plug-in that will run that coffee pot over there, and you can plug it in and it'll run that coffee pot and it'll make you a cup of coffee. You can turn the switch on, and so you got light, you can see where you're going. It operates in every way for you because it's come down, it's transformed itself down to a usable system. You follow that system back, you're going to hit a 220, a 440, and you're going to run into a transformer that's going to fry you. And if you go far enough back, you're going to run into a grid that takes care of a whole city or 2 cities or 3. Mm-hmm. And you get into that, and they will find a piece of dust. And that's all they'll find. So, when you go all the way back to the source doesn't worry. Source doesn't say, oh no, there's a distortion in the system. It doesn't worry at all. It just flows right back through it and purges itself and flows right out the other side, and it's the same energy coming back again. And it'll be the same energy again and again and again and again and again. And you will learn how to have differences with that energy and how to keep a neutrality system going, or you're going to blow your panel up. And you're going to be a person trying to enter in at the straight gate, but you're not able. Everything that goes on, every little thing that's said, every time they get in a huddle in a football game, you think they're talking about you. It's just, you get to that point, you can't enter into any kind of rest. It's always a hot wire, always fighting, always anger, always fussing over doctrines, fussing over everything else. Get out of that. Send it back through the source. It'll be the same energy, but it'll come back for you in a usable condition. So we have this going on through discontentment. The feedback loop of the mind will always try to make us a seeker of something other than what we are. We are humans. Now the feedback loop will say, I'll just read what I wrote here. Through discontentment, the feedback loop of the mind will always try to make us a seeker of something other than what we are. It will tell you what we have is not good enough. What you are is not good enough. Constant thoughts of not quite good enough. Climb the pyramid of character. Oh yeah, you got to get in there. You got to get that. You got to start with faith and virtue and knowledge and temperance and patience. And if you fall out on patience, you got to go all the way back down there and get on it again. Climb that pyramid of character. Take the steps of the new birth. Get justified. Get sanctified. Come to the baptism. Oh, you messed up your justification. You said a cuss word. Oh, you messed up this or that. is constantly trying to put you into processes where that you never think you have arrived. You never think you're good enough. Take the steps of the new birth. Live up to the prophet's message. You hear that all the time. You are an inferior or a superior person. There's so many people out there that are so much greater than you. And man, there's so many people out there that are so much dumber than you. You need to recognize there's energy source is energy source. Whether it's 1 amp, 3 amps, 10 amps, 20 amps. And just because you're a 20 doesn't make you a part of the system and them not. They're still a part of this whole energy system, flowing in it and doing for the system exactly what they're supposed to be doing. You are an inferior superior. Look and act holy. Come to the awakening. Awake. Awake from what? Awake from wherever you are. Awake from whatever you are. Awake, awake, awake. Well, it's everywhere now. The woke group, the liberal group, the awakened people in the New Age movement. Call it what you want. It's going on everywhere, and they're all a part of the system. And it's a system that's got an imbalance in it, so they're fighting all the time between race and wake and sleep and woke and color and religion and everything else, and they're constantly fighting because they are a people who are trying to enter in at the straight gate, and they're not able to enter because they won't create a neutrality system inside them. You're the one who creates the wire. Many people have come to the hot wires, and they've even come to the ground. And they use positive and negative, but man, there's no neutrality. There's no way of making yourself comfortable with the differences. That's what's going on for many. And then we think we have reached a certain point in life that we feel good or awakened. We say, yeah, I made it. Man, I feel good. I feel this is great. Everything that so-and-so told me is working. I'm awake now. The feedback loop doesn't go away. It just changes. And the feedback loop, all those voices, will just change. It'll change its message. How do we maintain this? Oh my God, what a great thing we're in. Let's maintain this thing. How do we maintain this? How do we keep control? So many people think that I got to control myself. This can't, that. You built a straight path. Just put it in it. Just keep it moving. How do the message changes from you're not good enough, build the pyramid, get the steps of the new birth in you. It just changes. Now you awake. So it changes and it says, how we maintain it. How do we keep control of this great thing? How much do we need to practice and study this newfound way? You know that goes through your minds all the time. And it's the same voice that was sending you all those other distortions. It's just a different form of distortion. And here we have it, and we keep thinking about it and practice and study this newfound way. We need to make doctrines of these discoveries. Oh my God. Let's make a doctrine so everybody that comes to this way will have to believe this doctrine. Distortions in the system because people won't build a neutrality process inside them as creators. We need to make doctrines. What's next? Oh my God, what's coming next? What's Brother Joe going to say next? What's Brother Tory going to bring to us next? What's the next move? What's the next thing? If the distortion can keep you off of the presence, the present, presence of what's happening right. That's all it needs to do. It don't matter if it's sending you a negative of who you are or a positive of who you are. If it can do it, it'll do it. And you'll say to yourself, where are we going next? This is so great. What's the next move? What are they going to say? Why are we here? Let's figure out why we're here. What's our purpose? I hear people saying it all the time. And it's that feedback loop saying, where I'm at, I want to be in a different place. I want to be in a different form. I want to be... No. Just be who you are. Enjoy who you are. Live in the present. Let it flow. Anything that crops up, just put it in the neutrality path. Take it back to the system. It'll come back in a different life form. It'll be the same energy. And you'll learn your lessons and you'll keep moving through the system. It's a system that works. It's an AC. It has negative and positive flowing back and forth. It's connecting one with another. It has a ground wire to keep it from moving outside of its instructed panel. It has a neutrality wire to take all the differences and move it right back in the system. So you got a system that's just flowing perfectly. But that feedback loop of your mind and all those voices, if you're not careful, oh yeah, you may get out of the whole I'm not good enough deal. But all of a sudden it's like I'm better than anybody. All of a sudden it's like I've learned more. I know more than so and so now. He ain't teaching me nothing. Well, I've never been a person who went somewhere to be taught from somebody. I went to learn to receive information and gain more knowledge, and that person, if they can do that for me, I am going to enjoy it with all I can. And when they stop informing me, I will still be their best friend if they'll let me. I'll still be all those things, but I'm going to look for a different information path. Mm-hmm. And I'll still be good friends. But what we do is we get into this distortion level. And if we ain't gaining knowledge, then we must not need them anymore. We got to come to a neutrality process where we know whatever form they are in, or it is in, or whatever you're around is in, whatever form it's in, it's feeding you. Those 7 or 8 trees right out here that I have going right around the yard, every night, you know what they do? They take in the carbon dioxide that I'm breathing out. If they didn't, we would all die from carbon dioxide levels. The tree is sitting there so patiently. It's a part of the system and it's taking in the carbon dioxide. And you know what it does during the daytime? It takes in the carbon dioxide that humans breathe, and in the daytime it puts out oxygen. So I need the tree to breathe and have oxygen for life, and the tree needs me to get the carbon dioxide, and we are a flowing system, one with the other all the time. So when we realize that everything around us, I don't care who the person is, how good or bad they are, whether they believe what you believe or not, whether they act the way you do or whatever it might be, whether they're older or younger, whether they're poorer or richer, they are a part of the ecosystem that is feeding you and helping you live and gain knowledge and understanding and information in this life. They're a part of the same energy you are. The feedback loop is constantly talking to us in some form that we are not good enough, we don't understand, we do understand, but we got to set up systems so we don't lose ground. It's a constant feedback loop, and it just talks and talks and talks with you. It's distortion of energy. Create your neutrality wire. The reality of it is quite simply this. We are the actual presence of the present moment. We are the source of all things. The Christ, the eternal observer. Remove all the added commentary of the constant loop. And that's what it is. It's a constant commentary of, you're not good enough, you got to do this, you got to get into this process, you got to go over here, you better back off, you better write this down, you better make a book of this, it's going to get lost. Constantly. This system. And we're in the presence of the present moment. But it's something that tries to take our eye, our third eye, and our two eyes, because the two eyes work in physical dimensions and the third eye works in spiritual dimensions. It's trying to get rid of the intercourse between the eyes and the heart. It's trying to get rid of the intercourse between the eyes and the mind. It's trying to put you into a future state that's always going to be better, or it's trying to put you in a past state that was never good enough. And it's doing it constantly to you. I've often said, Jesus hanging on Calvary, when he was hanging there, he had two thieves on each side of him. One thief was the one of your past that tries to steal everything from you by condemning you, and the other thief is your future that tries to keep your mind off of what's going on right now and get off somewhere. And those two thieves, if you're not careful, removes you right straight out of the presence of the moment. The reality is quite simply this: we are the actual presence of the present moment. We are the source of all things, the Christ, the eternal observer. Remove all the added commentary of the constant loop that regurgitates. What's it regurgitate, Brother Parnell? Tradition, belief, condemnation in your brain, constantly regurgitating it. How you did this, how you did that, how you looked wrong at this woman, how you lusted after this, how you smoked that cigarette, how you're going to have this, this is going to happen to you, that's going to happen to you, how you hated this person. It's a constant feedback loop trying its best to throw you off the presence of who you are. And there's only one way to let go of that feedback loop, and that is create within you a white wire, a neutrality system. And everything like that is just overflow of amperage in a world that you're trying to adjust to. Drop it into the neutrality path and send it right back through the source. And be at peace. Get rid of the explosions. Remove the added commentary of that constant loop that regurgitates tradition, belief, condemnation in the brain. When all of that falls away, there is a throne room voice, a naturalness. It'll rise up and you'll know it. You'll feel it when it's talking. It'll rise up above the frequencies of discontentment. It'll feed you contentment. It'll feed you peace. It'll feed you neutrality. That voice of clarity is us. And it is us who has arrived and have become one with what we created. We become one with what we created. How? How? Neutrality. Build that system. Now listen to me. You're sitting here and you're listening, you're saying, this is real good. But when you walk away from here, you now have been talked to and led to a straight path of how you are the creator. And if you haven't had it already and created it, you create you a neutrality system and stop using the positive, negative system. Stop fighting and fussing. Stop trying to figure out why this person's so negative and this person's so positive. Get out of the positive, negative system altogether and come to neutrality. come to an understanding that it's all of it is feeding our life system, our ecosystem, our understanding, our communication. It's feeding our sixth-dimensional intercourse. It's feeding our second-dimensional intercourse. It's giving us sex in every dimension. If you can understand what really sex is, an intimate relationship. It's giving us that relationship. Humans could only see 1%. Science has proved this. Humans can only see 1% of the visible light spectrum. Did you know that many animals can see up to 3% of the visible light spectrum? That's why sometimes you'll see an animal sitting in a corner or sitting somewhere on the couch, and it's just staring into a corner and looking, and you know the look of your little cat or your dog. You know they're looking at something. You say to yourself, what's there? Why do they keep looking at that corner? Why do they growl at that? Why do they? Because they're seeing things that you can't hear or see. And they are seeing it. Because they can see up to 3% of the color spectrum. Most of what they see is a negative in black and white. But they can see that color spectrum up to 3%. Us, humanity, can only see 1% of the visible light spectrum, which means we can only see 1% of what's going on around us. That's all we can see. So there's 99% of the activity that's going on around me, I can't see it. I'm telling you, you entered in at a gate. And that's all this is. This is a portal. And when we entered into that gate, we could see 1% of the color spectrum of the world we just entered. And now we're going to spend millions and billions of years, slow but sure, blending in and bringing the other 99% of this color spectrum into view. You remember some years ago, I was telling you about music and how they had 88 keys on a piano, black keys, white keys, 88 keys on a piano. And most people, musicians and everything else, they want to stay within that 88 keys. But they're starting to find out that there are more keys or more frequencies of music than those 88 keys. And I said, what we are doing right now is we're coming out over here into the 89 through 120 or 160. We're moving out into frequencies. And did you know that science, as they move things into those frequencies with their different technologies and things they have, that music that's being played in those dimensions will actually bring forms. There'll be forms that will raise up right in front of them. And did you know that those forms are here now? They're here right now. And what we are doing is we're tapping into beyond the 88 keys now. And it's beginning to show us forms. It's beginning to make us feel comfortable with six-dimensional people. It's beginning to make us realize the differences between sixth dimension and second. They, over there, they have sex in a certain way with their mouths and organs and talk and communication. Here we have sex in a certain way through physical and with our mouths and through communication and through information. And it's a constant, and we're learning all these dimensions. And as we learn them, I don't know when it'll be, maybe in the Capricorn age, wherever it might be, we're going to start catching and seeing these forms, and they're all right here. And we're going to begin to see them. I remember one of the preachers, he was so distraught with me because I was trying to take the people outside of these 88 keys, all this word form, all of this logos, and he fell apart. Many of them fell apart because they want to stay inside that box. Well, humans can only see 1%. In other words, we are unable to see the vast 99% of the world we live in. Take a moment to absorb that. Just think about that. The majority of our existence and activity is unseen. Mm-hmm. Think of the 99% of the earth world is unknown to us. At best, we see 1% of the color spectrum. Humanity is just a door. It's a strait. It's a neutrality system that moves us from theophany into humanity, and we're able to communicate and enjoy and feel and be earthbound and have dimensions through our creation that the theophany could never touch at that time. But now we've created those dimensions and we're living in them, and we're beginning to move beyond the box of theophany, the box of logos. The best we see is 1%. Humanity is the door into a vast new world. It is just a portal. It's a strait, an opening for us to enter and begin discovering the other 99%. And what we did is we got hooked, got baited up and hooked on religion. We got baited up and hooked on politics, and we can't seem like we can't move past. And the 1% is all that tradition, all of that politics and religion and everything else. There's your 1%, and we're picking up the color spectrum and catching these forms, and we got hooked on it, and we're having a tough time moving any further. And now we're at a point, we broke those seals, we stepped out of that world, and we're at a point we're quickly breaking into those realms. And as we break into those realms, the earth is a portal. It's an opening for us to enter and begin to discover the other 99% of who we are and where we live. What are we talking about here? What are we saying? The way into all of these things is neutrality. When you get into a battle, you get afraid. You step away. You dislike this person. You dislike this area. You dislike nature. You on and on and on. When you get into those things and you're in that battle, you have something about you that's called a creator, and you can create a system in you that accepts those differences. Someone said, "Oh, Brother Parnell, is paranormal, is it real?" Sure, it's real. Is astral projection, is it real? Of course it's real. That's what you did. You astral projected into this world right here. You came in here and you created it, and you're living in it. And paranormal, they're hearing voices and they're seeing forms and everything else. It's just things that are outside the 88 keys. But they're there. They're real. Can we go there? Yes. I've talked with people. I've talked with Brother Baker. I've talked with Ron Cleveland. I've talked with William Branham. Yes, we can go there. We can break the spectrum level. We can, and we're going to eventually do it. You say, "Brother Parnell, my father died or my mother died. And you know what? Sometimes I can just smell the smell of her clothes. Sometimes I can sense my father's presence. What is that? They're here. They're right here. And what they're doing, if if you've broken the 88 keys and you can get out of the box and go through the straight gate and come into a new world, what you're doing is you are slowly building and coming into a system that's outside those keys, and it's a real world, and you're picking it up. You're smelling it. You're hearing it. You ever hear people call your name? You know, you're doing whatever, and you'll turn around and look, and you'll think, somebody just called my name. Am I crazy? No, you just heard from another dimension. We have to realize that these 88 keys are the very basics and fundamentals of what we have entered. And there's a whole entire world of discovery, and that discovery is about us. The other 99% is not a different system. The other 99% is the same energy, the same system, the same everything, and we have to come to a neutrality process or build a neutrality process in us to pick it up, to let it flow through the source and keep moving. One of the sisters wrote, I think it's Sister Puri. She said, oh my, by this principle, we will be able to understand our positive and negative sides. And there is really no worry because the source, the spirit life, is able to bring the imbalances to a level playing field. Isn't that wonderful? Yes. It's wonderful to be able to step outside the system. Mm-hmm. The system that will cause blow-ups. The system that will cause weaknesses. The system that will cause inferiorities and superiorities. Larger amps, smaller amps. Battles over doctrines. Everything else. The system that has all that in it. Isn't it wonderful to know that we are creators? And we can create in us a neutrality system that handles the positives and the negatives, the difference in amperage and everything else. And the spirit life is able to bring those imbalances to a level playing field for you. I loved what she said. Brother Daniel wrote, he said, humanity has spent generations using a positive-negative system of measurement which can never bring any of us into the correct balance. And it won't. If you're trying to balance everything by how much negative you are and how much positive you are, you're missing the whole ride. We were never able to bring any of us into perfect balance with others as well as everything else. The concept of using a neutral to balance things changes everything for those who can change, can remove the bias. That's what causes most of the imbalances. Bias and judgment of a positive-negative system. That's what it is. It's imbalances of a positive-negative system. And you have to step outside the hot wires to get yourself back in shape. This concept of using a neutral to balance things changes everything for those who can change, can remove the bias and judgment of a positive-negative system. That system is a remnant of the old Piscean age. I agree. It's a remnant of Taurus, Aries, and Pisces, the last 6,000 years. So listen to me. If you think you're going to change it overnight, no, but start creating it. Start creating the straight path. Don't be one of those who is unable to enter because of your differences. Just create a path and start dumping all of those distortions into that path. Everything that's a distortion, everything that's not a level playing field in your mind, Dump it put it in there, put it in there, put it in there. Because the source inside you will level it out. The system, positive, negative system, is an old Piscean age system. Brother Stephen Adabom. Awesome insight. How amazing it is in the midst of contrast. How the Spirit finds a way to curtail excesses and bring into play leveling the playing field. And it has a mechanism to do that now. We have graduated. We are electrical engineers in this spiritual realm now, and we built a pathway. Every day it seemed like our panel blew up and blew up and blew up. Not enough virtue, not enough patience, not enough godliness, not good enough. Oh no, I missed one of the steps in the new birth. Look what I said, look what I did. Blow up, blow up, blow up, blow up, blow up, one after the other. And now we have created, we're creators, and we created within us a new wire. We rewired ourselves. You ever hear somebody say, well, that guy's a live wire? Well, we just rewired ourselves. Amazing how we can curtail the excesses, bring into play a leveler playing field mechanism. Thanks for helping us in our understanding. And there was many more great things written. It's getting late, and I'm going to slow down here. I hope this has been a help. If you have the time, go back to when we were discussing the zodiac and look for those few messages where that we built some posters and ministered some messages on Libra. You remember we talked about Aquarius, and we brought it through Taurus and Adam's day to Aries, from Noah to Jesus, and Pisces from Pentecost to William Branham, and we talked all about the characteristics, and we came to Libra, and I think there's 2 or 3 messages on it, and there's some posters if you can look those up. There's some really great things about balance. That's where I'm headed. I'm going to go back and pick up Libra for just a little while and show how Libra is the whole balancing system, or Libra is the neutrality wire. I'll just do it in the next message, but very quickly, let me say this. Moses couldn't handle Israel. He couldn't handle Egypt. He was a man of the Lord. But the Lord said, Moses, I'm going to give you Aaron. I'm going to give you Levi as your balancing system. I'm going to give you Libra. And he'll be the prophet, and you'll be his God. So the Lord built a neutrality system right in to Israel. We'll get into that. Then Abraham. Think about this for just a minute. Abraham being the source, and the promise or the message within the source was, you're the father of many nations, and you're going to bring forth a promised son. So Abraham takes a woman. She's a part of the system. She just wasn't the woman the Lord was going to move the main source through. He takes a lesser amperage. He takes a hot wire, a Hagar, and he produces an Ishmael. He comes over here to the other one, to Sarah, and he produces Isaac. Well, here's this Ishmael over here, and he's cranking it out. He's putting out 12 sons. He's putting out all these things. He's cranking the whole image out long before Jacob comes after Isaac. There wasn't no 12 sons come out of Isaac. But later on down the line, here comes Jacob, and he has 12 sons. And look at what these two hot wires do. These two hot wires battle continually. One of them intellect, the other one revelation, a real promise, the other one intellect, and your intellect and your revelation constantly battling the 12 sons, the 12 disciples, the 12 patriarchs. The foundation of your revelation and your understanding is in a constant battle, and they're both a part of the system. And look at the Middle East. Just a constant battle, because what? They don't know how to build a neutrality system. They're unable to enter the Strait gate. That's one of the things that I loved about Donald Trump. He diffused the battle. He took the PLO out of the system and said, they're not coming to the table with us. I'm going to sit down with the Arabs. I'm going to sit down with Israel. I'm going to take the 13 nation of Arabs. I'm going to take the nation of Israel. We're going to put together a neutrality system where we stop all this. And it was working. There was more peace agreements signed through neutrality, not through bombs and killing one another and everything else, but a neutrality system was being built. And 3 months after he went out of office, you know what we were doing? Right back to bombing Iraq, bombing Iran, blowing this up, blowing that up. Bombs going everywhere because they dismantled the neutrality system. And the PLO's at the table, and they're all fighting over who deserves this and who deserves that. And it's a constant battle again. But there was a stretch of time, a little stretch of time in there, that the Holy Spirit, the source, showed us a neutrality system. And don't think it's gone. It will happen in the earth. It might not be that man, but the Spirit is who did it. And the Spirit will use others to build that system in this earth. There will be a neutrality system. And there's a neutrality system in you. We'll get into that more. You can see it all through the Bible. Jesus Christ was a neutrality system between life and condemnation, between life and death. A neutrality system that every time death shows up, we're able to put it on the neutrality path, send it back into the source, and know that every one of our loved ones, every one of our past saints, every one of our everything is there in the same system we're in, and it'll roll itself back out in due time. It's a great place to be. How content we are. What a condition to be in. So content as we become observers and creating. After we observe, we are creating a system, another path in the system that will do away with the battle, and we'll study war no more. I love this. I hope it's a help to you. Love bless. If anybody has anything to say, you can. Or
I think we're good. A lot has been said.
Okay. I understand. Sometimes I do. Get into something that when I'm done, it even surprises me. I'll go back and I'll listen to this and I'll say, I could have said this, but wow, I did say this. So, we love you. There's so many things we can put onto that pathway. When sickness comes, there's a neutrality system. You willing to put it onto that system and send it back into the energies? When problems come, when troubles come, when finances come, whatever comes, are you willing to drop it into the neutrality system? and let it move through the source and take care of itself and continue to flow. Be healed. Be one. Be enjoined. Be what you came here to be. Enjoy the presence of the present moment. God bless.